North Korea and Russia have reaffirmed their close geopolitical partnership in defiance of growing concerns in the West about military on both sides working together to bolster Russia's war effort in Ukraine. North Korea's foreign minister vowing to stand alongside Moscow until the day of victory. Choe meeting her Russian counterpart Sergey Lavrov in Moscow. Mr. Lavrov also hailing close ties in their military and intelligence, thanking Pyongyang for what he called its principled position on Russia's war in Ukraine. Ms. Choe meanwhile accused the US and South Korea, with which North Korea is still technically at war, of plotting a nuclear strike against her country. The meeting took place as South Korea imposed sanctions on 11 North Korean individuals and entities following Pyongyang's latest ICBM launch. South Korea's Unification Ministry says the officials named had contributed to missile and nuclear development in the north and also helped channel illegal foreign funds to Pyongyang. KCNA, that is the North state media, has identified the rocket fired yesterday as a new intercontinental ballistic missile, calling this the Hwasong-19, the world's strongest strategic missile. Yesterday's test launch suggests the missile is able to strike nearly anywhere in the U.S. mainland. The ICBM also maintaining the longest flight time for any missile launched by North Korea. The test occurred amid expectations among Ukraine's allies that North Korean troops will soon be taking part in the war in coming days. The U.S. says Pyongyang has 10,000 soldiers in Russia and up to 8,000 in the Kursk region, where Ukrainian forces are holding positions.
Russia has been training DPRK soldiers in artillery, UAVs, basic infantry operations, including trench clearing, indicating that they fully intend to use these forces in frontline operations. Should these troops engage in combat or combat support operations against Ukraine, they would become legitimate military targets.
북한군의 파병은 러시아의 불법 우크라이나 침략 전쟁을 더욱 지연시킬 뿐만 아니라 한반도는 물론 유럽 지역의 평화와 안보에 대한 중대한 위협이라는 데 견해를 같이 하고 향후 긴밀한 정보 공유와 공조를 바탕으로 상황 전개에 따른 필요한 대응 조치를 취해 나가기로 합의하였습니다.
China has been urged to intervene, with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky saying he is surprised by Beijing's silence on the North Korean deployment. The Chinese Foreign Ministry says bilateral relations between Russia and North Korea, what it calls two sovereign states, are their own matter. And from what Dasha Chernyshova joins us live from Moscow. Dasha, ties between Russia and North Korea, now those have ebbed and flowed, improved or deproved over the years. With this new warming of relations between Russia and North Korea, their alignment, what would count as a red line for a newly close Moscow and Pyongyang?
Well, what we have heard today in Moscow was that the relations between Moscow and Pyongyang have reached unprecedentedly high level. This is the assessment of the Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov, who was greeting his North Korean counterpart in the Russian capital. Now, we are definitely seeing the attempt by Moscow and Pyongyang to show the world that their relations are very close, and also the understanding now is that they are trying to implement the strategic partnership agreement that was agreed upon by the leaders of the two countries just recently, and they want to make sure that it plays the stabilizing role, as they describe it, for the region, but also for the entire continent when it comes to different spheres, especially in security. The Kremlin, however, has refused to comment on whether Russia had helped North Korea to develop its nuclear technology, saying that was a very specialized issue. Meanwhile, we are certainly hearing the very strong statements coming from the North Korean side, saying that the relationship between Moscow and Pyongyang have reached the level of invincible military partnership. And the Russian foreign minister is saying that the military of the two countries have been getting closer and closer when it comes to their bilateral ties. At the same time, Moscow insists that any relationship with Pyongyang is not going to violate the international law. And this is where Moscow has taken a very strong stance, saying that it wants to develop ties with its neighbor, but at the same time in line with the international law. Obviously, the timing is also of interest. We are seeing the relations between Russia and the West souring, and the countries of the West that are helping Ukraine speaking more about the possibility of giving permission to Kiev to strike deep within the Russian Federation.
Oh, Dasha, Russia's position on not violating international law, that is also its official position on any suggestions that it might be using North Korean troops for its war in Ukraine. Neither side, neither Moscow nor Pyongyang, actually confirming the presence of those troops, but also not actually denying them. What more do we know about reports of thousands of North Korean troops in Russia to fight this war in Ukraine?
That's right. We have seen very delicate wording when it comes to confirming or denying the presence of the North Korean troops anywhere in the area of the so-called special military operation in Ukraine, with the Russian president recently saying that if there are images of the North Korean troops, they will be very important and very serious proof, with the Russian foreign minister Sergey Lavrov saying that if there are such soldiers, then they have to be shown. And with the North Korean side saying that they are ready to stand shoulder to shoulder with Russia when it comes to any sort of fighting, be it in Ukraine or elsewhere. So the understanding we get from both sides that they are not confirming or not denying. At the same time, Moscow has been long time saying that they have enough resources of their own when it comes to the fighting in Ukraine. But obviously, these are the wordings that we are hearing from both sides that make many countries in the West, and especially in Ukraine, worry about the course of the ongoing operation. But the Russian president also, when he was talking about the North Korean troops and about the alleged presence of such in Russia or in the area of the operation, has said that Russia is willing to use its Article 5 of the Strategic Partnership Agreement with North Korea as it sees fit, but also noted that indeed Moscow has the upper hand when it comes to the fighting in Ukraine.
Oh, thanks to Dasha Chernyshova reporting live to us there from Moscow.